Yeah.
Right, so we're going to start on the community. We're going to take a look at some of these unanswered questions. There's two questions I saw right after another. How can I change the appointment times into 15 minutes? So we're going to take a look at this question and see if we can answer it. So this is COFMUG, May 2021, and my name is Mike Burgee. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a new file, blank file. We're going to call this calendar on my desktop. And just hit OK for now. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to go to Add-Ons. And we're going to install an add-on into this file. That's the calendar add-on. Then we're going to install that calendar on this layout by dragging and dropping it. So as we can see, that creates a specific UUID that identifies this add-on. And it's got some config settings in here, initial props, calendar data URL, so on and so forth. So the first thing we're going to do is configure this add-on. So this is the built-in calendar configurator. We've got some sample events in here. So normally I would change this to different events, but I'm going to leave it because it added events for me. And these are all for, looks like August or September 2020. So if we go back to August of 2020, there's some events in there. So the question here was, how do we customize this to be 15 minutes instead of half hours? So we're going to try to reverse engineer this to see what's going on. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my data viewer, because chances are there's going to be something that's in that data viewer. But in this case, there's actually not anything in that data viewer. So since there's nothing in that data viewer, that means there's no script that's setting HTML code in here for me. So that means that everything's going to be in scripts. So here's the add-on that got added. There's private stuff and there's public stuff in here. And just to confirm, there isn't a setting in here that says it's 15 minutes, start time, end time. Optional fields, tooltips, all day fields, editable fields, styles, filter settings, no. Start on day, default view, event style. Yeah, so nothing in here, and the default configuration has 15-minute increments in here. So we're going to have to actually hack into this and see what's going on. So the first thing we need to do is figure out how this HTML gets into this web viewer, because what I see here is some native FileMaker buttons that are grouped up here. And let me just ungroup this so that you can separate those out. So these are, standard FileMaker button bars and stuff that are performing some scripts. We can see that. And maybe we can take a look at what happens when we do this. So there's some scripting going on. So the web viewer source here, you can kind of see is set up with, doesn't really look like something that you would render. So like this just looks like some FileMaker information that's being stored there as a function. So I don't know that it's actual code that's being put in here. So that makes me think that scripting is setting that code. So set view button was what we were looking for. That's what was going on right here, right? Set view button. And we see some parameters in here. So view time grid day is the view, and that's the one we want to customize. And then it's got the add-on UUID in here. So it says that we're specifying this one right here. You can see the UUID matches. So I'm going to cancel that. Go back to scripts, and you can see it's just something that calls and passes it on to a different script. So that's FCC calendar view change. And you can see FCC calendar view change. So this script is running. So now we've passed that parameter onto the script. As parameter is time, view, day, and the UUID. You can actually see those two are getting split out from the JSON parameter here. And then FC calendar get web viewer object name. So that looks like it's just getting this object name, which is this dynamically generated web viewer name. And that just has, looks like it just has the UUID appended to the name of the web viewer. FC calendar WV for web viewer. And then that's, yeah, that's just the UUID in there. So you could actually programmatically set this as well dynamically. So this, I'm assuming, is just, yeah, it's adding that add-on UUID to the prefix, doing something if the add-on UUID is empty, and then exiting with that prefix. So we've got that. Okay, now we're getting into like the meat and potatoes of it. So the end of this script actually tells the web viewer to perform a JavaScript script, essentially. We're telling that web viewer, call this function name, calendar set view, parameters view. So where was view being set? Yeah, that's our view parameter that's being passed in as a script parameter. So what we're looking for doesn't actually appear to be FileMaker scripting anymore. It looks like it's now web viewer scripting. So now we need to figure out what happens to set this up. Set up the web viewer and generate the code. So we can make sure that there wasn't like a script trigger added here. No. So it looks like there's maybe some custom functions that got added to our database, and there is. And the one that I'm really looking at is this FC calendar data URL initial props. So this function is responsible for building the add-ons data URL and merging with the initial props. Initial props, there's a spelling mistake. That will get merged in. All right, so look at here. This is interesting. There is FC calendar HTML in here. So that makes me think that they're starting with an HTML template in that field. So we'll go and check that out. But first, let's just kind of check it out here. And they're doing some SQL here, substituting out their props for their initial props here. So initial props, though, that's not a function. So initial props are getting passed this. So whatever they pass to it is getting substituted out in their HTML. And their HTML is coming from fname up here. So we've got some processing on fname here where we're splitting it up. Field name. Okay, so all they're doing with this is they're taking the HTML field, splitting it up, and then they're getting the HTML. So select T, which is the table. So select FC calendar add-on dot HTML from T for table, which is FC calendar add-on. So this is just a dynamic way of getting data out of that field and then substituting in their props. So that's a long way around to saying, let's go find out what's in that HTML field. So obviously it's not on the layout, so let's put it on the layout. I chose button instead of this. So we need to be looking at calendar add-on HTML. Now, we might not actually see anything. Yeah, this is an unrelated table. That's what I thought. So calendar add-on. Let's see which one of these is actually the right layout. FC calendar config will get us there. So let's go here. This is what shows up, and this is its own web viewer as well. So that configuration that happens in the card window going to be here. But for now, I'm going to pop HTML on here. right on top of this, and we can see that, okay, there's a whole bunch of code in here. There is a whole lot of code in here. So I'm going to copy all that code, and I'm going to go out to an editor that is not FileMaker. And let me just clean up some stuff in the background here. And I use a program called Visual Studio Code. So here is our calendar code. And I'm going to save this file so it color codes it as source.html on my desktop. And now I can see that it's HTML. And I can start playing around with some of this. It's been minified, which means that all the returns have been removed. But I can close the style right here, and I can close the style there. And, oh. And there's the end of the style of the body. So it looks like at some point of time this actually breaks, and it might be because of that prop stuff. And it looks like maybe there's base64 encoding in here. So this is all style stuff. This is all the look and feel. So it looks like we're actually using some other package. So another good thing we can do here is actually Google search this. FC time calendar. So it looks like this is full calendar. So if we go take a look at full calendar.io and we take a look at its demos page, wow, this looks kind of familiar without the buttons at the top, but maybe this is the same thing. So if you figure out what package something is built with like this, then chances are you can go look up that package and see how can I make the customizations that I'm making. Oh man, this is so much stuff. Okay, maybe I should let me hit home again, and I'm going to minimize the entirety of Bootstrap 4.0 is included in this code. So one thing I point out here, body onload, it's running a function so that when this code runs, initially when the body of this page loads, it's going to run this init function. So that means that something's always going to run, and that's why a calendar shows up just when we go to browse mode. So I don't need to do anything. If I go into, let me jump back to that screen. Once I installed that, I was able to go into browse mode, and there's no loading script here. So if you remember, there's no on layout enter script trigger or anything. It's just the web viewer is loading itself because the source code is loading itself. So here's more. This looks like where it's kind of maybe breaking. Style head. Well, I didn't actually see where it broke in here. I guess it works. Script. I skipped over something in the middle here, because this is all the JavaScript at the end here that's going on. It's not styles anymore. And this is all on one line. You see how I don't have any line numbers over here on the left. Okay, so here you go, 1920. Style head. Okay, well, it's just here in the middle. So here's a script. Here is another script, and you kind of just find where this stuff is and maybe delimit it a little bit so you can kind of jump between it. So you need to enable JavaScript. So it looks like the stuff that's going to create this view is going to be in here already, somewhere in here. So let's go back and take a look at this button again, because that's what I want to see. That that parameter was time grid day. So that parameter is eventually passed right into this HTML to tell it what to display. So if I search time grid day, there's 3 occurrences of it in my code. So we've got time grid day, type time grid, duration days 1. Okay, so that doesn't look to me like that. Oh, there it is. Slot duration 30 minutes. So let's check out and do a search for 30 minutes. And this is the only place in all of this source HTML that says that slot is 30 minutes. So I'm just going to, I have this as kind of my backup file. I'm going to change that to 15. I'm going to copy this whole chunk of code back here. And I'm going to replace what was in this HTML field with that. And now let's go back to our calendar view and go to our day view. Oh, it didn't work. All right, can't be that easy, huh? Or I might have to reinitialize this. So let me close this out, reopen it, go to day view. Oh, still nothing. Oh, well, we could only hope. So there's got to be something else that we didn't catch yet that's doing this. Just out of curiosity, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my data viewer, and I'm going to see if that 15 minutes was loaded in there. So get, oh, what is it? Layout object attribute. Oh, I don't even remember what this was. Object name source. So I'm going to look up this object name again. Pop that in there. Go back to day view. Source is a file. Wow. Something's going on here. Let me do all. I'm not a walking lexicon like I used to be. Actually, I have to look up what get layout container object or layout object attribute takes. Source, content. So I think I wanted content, not source. Okay, so here we go. That's all of our source code there. So let me go back here. I'm going to create a new page. I'm just going to search this for 15, 0, 0. And it says I have one search result somewhere in here. But it's somewhere in that line because this isn't wrapped. So if that wasn't it, I'm going to not save this, and I'm going to look for 15 now. So there's our duration. So we got views in here, default view, time grid week, views, time grid, class E, all day slot 0, slot duration 15, slot event overlap 0. So maybe it's not in the right place. So let's take a look at the documentation in here. Full calendar, docs, overall display, time grid view, time grid view. The frequency for displaying slot duration default is 30 minutes. What if I do a search for calendar 15 increments? That just links me back to that documentation, but the default will make a slot every half hour. Slot minutes. So maybe I need to look for slot minutes. There's nothing in there. What if I just do a search for 30? Oh, there's 950 results. That's probably not it then. 30, comma. If I do a search for minutes, there's 30 results. We can page through that. Minutes, minutes, minutes. This dot minutes, this dot minutes. So I'm skipping these functions because it doesn't look like anything's setting it to 30 minutes specifically. Like by a default. Time over 60, so that's just a function for calculating minutes. Minutes 30, hours 1, minutes 30, minutes 15. Okay, let's see. Well, this is minutes 30 and then minutes 15, which is what we want, but I'm not sure if that doesn't seem to be anything we can customize. And then that just goes back to the beginning. So that doesn't get what we want. And there's no slot minutes in here. Slot label interview. If not specified, a reasonable value based on slot duration. We got 6 matches for slot duration. That's what we customize. Slot duration 15 minutes. So it looks like it's still, I'm guessing what is happening, and the reason why it hasn't worked even though we hard-coded it in there is because we hard-coded the default, and the default is being overwritten by something FileMaker is generating. So I am guessing that part of the code passed in is still doing that. So let's go through the private folder, developer only. Stay out of here if you want to live. So we've got, this is interesting here, making some files in here. Opening a data file, reading a data file, target the HTML. So where is this path? Path is coming from get script parameter. It's only used when developing the add-on, never used by users of the application, so that's probably fine. Default day of the week. Starting day of the week. These look like they're just some defaults that got set. Load calendar. This looks promising. Here's our initial props. That's just being set in there. Load initial props. Value initial props. So I don't see that this has anything there except config is being passed in. So let's config FC calendar config. That's another one of those custom functions, FC calendar config. Add-on UID. But this is just getting field ref config store. Calendar add-on config store. So let's take a look at what that field does. Config store is just a text field. So if that's just a text field, what is the value of that text field? So let's go back to our config layout. And I want to put that config store on there. See what that says. We got some JSON in here, so I'm just going to go to something like JSON Editor Online and tree this out so we can see what's going on. This just looks like all the stuff that you would set through their editor. So it doesn't look like this is what we're looking for either. Okay, so config store isn't what we want. HTML is possibly not what we want. So if you remember, under view change, there was performing a script, calendar set view with the view. So now I want to deep dive in this code and find that function, because something is going something is up with this. And you can see like this has been customized with view from FM. We are deep in the JavaScript. I bet if the creator of this add-on actually did not minify this JavaScript, it would be a lot easier to deal with. But unfortunately, it's not so easy to unminify JavaScript. So calendar set view, this is the only function, so this is what's actually going here. Function E, if window show config, return null, if X, calendar state, console one, change view. So I'm just kind of scrolling through here, through the lines here to see looks like so I should be able to look for time grid day in here. Slot label format. So let's take a look at this, because this looks like it's a view. Time grid day, event time format. So this starts to get out there, doesn't it? It doesn't look like anything's actually overriding the default. That's what I want to find, is what's overriding that default. So that's slot duration. Search for slot duration again. There's 6 slot durations. And this one looks like the only one that it's being set on. So the other possibility is that it's loading that file each time. But that was developer only. So let me try to think of what. Let me verify that this is still showing our changes. So here's the HTML that's currently in there. And if I find for 15, there it is. If I find for 30, no results. So that's been set. Actually, I wanted that one so that I could go back. Showing access time and 15-minute slots. Here's a JS fiddle example. Ooh. That looks about right, what we want, right? Slot duration, slot label interval, slot label format, slot minutes. There's no slot minutes tag. Slot label interval is in there, so let's do slot label interval over here. Slot label interval. That's being in a past value. List option, slot label interval. See if slot label format's in here. Slot label format. Slot label format's in here. That also doesn't look like we can customize it. So we know it's possible with full calendar to show these 15 minutes. So how do we initialize the calendar this way? Let's go back and take a look at our go all the way up to the top. Our bootstrap, and body, FMW init. That doesn't necessarily look helpful. 63. So there's so much going on here. Dependencies day grid. Just loading a bunch of other stuff. Yeah, this is where it starts to get confusing and starts to go through to the point where maybe we won't be able to customize this. I'd hate to say that after spending all this time, but sometimes that's just the way it goes. So there's still no slots in here. If we go through and search for some of these other scripts, we've got our config store. We looked at that config store and we didn't find anything specific that we could do. Calendar schema, that just looks like it's going to fetch our data to be displayed on the calendar. What would be really nice for one of these add-ons would be the ability for you to pass in your own JSON list of parameters that the calendar would respect. But for that, you'd have to build this yourself, right? All right, so callback config, fetch ID, nothing there. Looks like we can really use. Set view, that just does the calendar view change. This just takes the view. Passes it on to calendar set view. Which we saw in here. We had our initial props in here too. Just trying to find something in here that I can customize further. I wonder what happens if I go the other way. So let me find my 15, 0, 0 again. What if I change this to 60? Copy that back out. Just going to open up a new window so I can do this. Take all that HTML, paste it back in there. Day view over here. Well, that works. So something works. So that changed it to an hour. It's a little bit weird because there's events that start in the middle of the hour, but it looks like I can actually, that's actually changing an event. I don't know if that'll work. So the increment works, so it just wasn't compatible with going down to 15 minutes increments. So I wonder if that's a label issue or something else going on. Well, I've spent 45 minutes so far just to be able to tell this person on the forum that they can change it to an hour, but not 15 minutes. So that's really bizarre. Like, why would that work and not? So like, does this also work with like if I do 01 or 02? 0? If I do 2 hours, does that change it? It does. Now it's 2 hours. So we can go larger, but not smaller. What if I do 0, 0 and something like 20 minutes? And what's interesting is like each time I do this, and I click back on this window, it automatically refreshes for me. So I got 20 minutes in here. 2 a.m., 2:20 to 3 a.m. So why would you be able to do that and not 15? Huh? Not 15. so weird. What if I do smaller then? Then I'm going to do 10 minutes. Let's see what it does. 10 minutes works, but it works in half-hour increments for the labels. So maybe it does have to do something with the labels. This is weird. I'm going to start answering this person's question. Yeah, that's really weird. 10 minutes works. 20 minutes works. 15 minutes does not work. Payback and all right, so that's an answer to that question. So yeah, I would approach that in the same way. I would maybe spend an hour working on this, which I'm closing on having spent. I would say, you know, it looks like it might be possible to do. Do you want us to spend more time working on it? Or do you want us to just implement something that we know is going to work? And I know stuff like So Simple Calendar and Dayback are going to work because I've used them for that exact purpose. So you've got a Filemaker Calendar right here. This actually shows 30-minute time slots in here, but I know you can customize it for 15 minutes. So Simple's the same way. And So Simple, I think, is actually built on fullcalendar.io as well, but it has all of the features available. So it has much more views that you can use. And those things, you know, they have a price associated with it, but eventually the price to buy something off the shelf is going to be less than the price it is for you know, a senior developer such as myself to go try to customize that for you. So yeah, that's that question. So there was another question in here that I think we can fill another little bit of time with if I navigate to the right place. And that was, how do I just customize the look and feel of it? Edit the text format, please. So this would be somewhat easier. So let me set this back to its default of 30 minutes. So we have that in here. And I'm going to scroll all the way back up to the top, and we're going to look at the CSS here. So in here, we can do a search for stuff like font. And there's 162 things in here. So I'm going to look up font family. So it's only 15. So let's look at font family, see what we can find. So we got, here we go. There's some font families up in here. So to show this change, this obvious change, I'm going to go look up some CSS font family ones, and I'm going to change it to something ridiculous. So let's do, like, try it. Actually, let's do font color or background color. Let's do background color. So there's a lot of CSS tags in here. Oh, background color. There's too many background colors. How about just color? That would be font color. What about font weight? That one's all right. Let's see if we can actually track down what this is going to be. So we got FC day header. So I think what FC day header, FC is full calendar. Day header means, I think it's going to be this right here, Thursday. So let's take a look at what that code looks like. Background color F5, F5, F5. If you look at that, that's kind of a white color. Its color is going to be that kind of gray color. Font weight 500, font size 12. So let's take a look at this. Let's just customize this, and we're going to change this font size right here to 36. That's 3 times the size that it was. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to leave my line right there so I know where it is. I'm going to paste this in there and see. Oh wow, that was on there. So yeah, you can see that goes. So let's say that we also want to customize the color. So let's do bright red or something like that. Copy this, paste it back in. Now we have red. So that is much easier to do, but you got to know what tag you're looking for, and you got to know what how to write some CSS. So this is much easier to do than the JavaScript. So let's write an answer for this person here. So back by modifying the HTML source code that is displayed web. This can be done by altering the contents of the, what was this table called? FC Calendar add-on. Field the record that when you install the add-on. CSS, kind of point them out here. What line is this on? That's like line 5. Lines 5 through 14. Question though, this CSS is minified, so there's thousands of code wrapped up into those 9 lines of minified code. Still easily search through CSS with a code editor and make CSS customizations to the file. Complete and paste your modified HTML to replace what is in that field, and you will see the changes refresh instantly in the web viewer. For example, what was the thing I searched for? I guess font weight is what I searched for, right? Let me look up 36px again to find out where it was. I'll take a screenshot here as well. Pop out. Header and go to the column headers for these large red. Here's some screenshots. So I'll highlight this right here. Paste this image on in here. I'll hit a return and paste that other image on here. right, so we've answered another question here. So we've demonstrated how that is done. It's pretty good for an hour's worth of work, answering 2 questions and hopefully helping out these 2 people on the forums. So still have Beverly on the line. Anybody have questions for what we've gone over? Not really. All right, so I'm going to cut off our recording here, and thanks everyone for attending.